May 27th, 1962. In a small town in the state of Pennsylvania, a town called Centralia, firefighters were called to a landfill. They were there to extinguish a fire, as they had done many times before. However, this time something unexpected happened. The fire spread to an underground coal seam, and it has been burning ever since. Today, we're going to talk about the town that some people have called the Devil's Town in America. Michael Joseph, a teacher in his 40s, was on his way to work one morning. His house was located west of the town of Centralia, and it was the middle of winter. The drive to school was supposed to take about 10 minutes, but he knew it would take longer because the roads would be frozen. He got into his car, holding his briefcase in one hand and a cup of hot coffee in the other. As he got into the car and put his hand on the steering wheel, he felt frustrated. It wasn't just because he had to go to work and face annoying students, or because of the traffic he would face on the way. The town only had about 1,400 residents, so there wasn't much traffic. His annoyance came from the road itself. The asphalt would be frozen because of the winter. If the road was frozen, it was dangerous to drive or speed. So the 10-minute drive would take longer because he would have to drive slowly. The cold air burned his skin, and he knew he hated the winter. He wished that all the snow would suddenly melt and the weather would become warm and sunny. His wish came true, but not in the way he expected. Kathleen Stevenson, a nurse at a hospital in the town called Miners Memorial Hospital, was starting to notice that the workers who normally came in with injuries or needed medical care because of their work in the mines were becoming fewer and fewer. One night, she was leaving the hospital and thinking about the latest case she had treated, a 9-year-old girl who was having trouble breathing. This was something she was used to seeing, workers coming to the hospital with this type of problem. As she was driving home, she noticed that the streets, which were usually frozen because of the cold weather, were not. It was winter, but the weather was warmer than usual. She hadn't noticed this in the past. When she parked her car at home and got out, the cool air touched her skin. It was a pleasant coolness, different from the harsh cold they were used to in this town. The other thing she noticed was the smell. There was a smell that wasn't strong, but it was noticeable, enough to make her wonder without worrying. When she went inside, she saw her husband rummaging through the drawers, his face tense and angry. She asked him what he was looking for, and he told her he was looking for his headache pills and couldn't remember where he had left them. She told him to look in the drawer in the bedroom, but he said he had already looked there and the pills were gone. She was surprised by this because he had brought them home the day before. It turned out that he hadn't brought them home the day before, but a week or two ago. The reason she forgot about it was the amount of stress she had been under at work, especially because of the number of patients who had come in. These patients were of all ages and types, and they were suffering from headaches, some from difficulty breathing like the girl she had treated before she left, and some from constant fatigue. One of her colleagues also mentioned something strange about the number of cases at the hospital. Mark, a high school student, was nervous about a math test that he had just taken. He hadn't been able to sleep the night before because of a headache, and to make matters worse, one of his classmates came up to him after class and told him that their teacher, Mr. Joseph, had fainted during one of their lessons that day. In the days that followed, Mark heard several of his classmates complaining of fatigue, headaches, and other strange symptoms. One day at school, the bell rang. But it wasn't the school bell. It was a fire alarm. The town of Centralia was on fire. The fire spread quickly, and the townspeople were forced to evacuate. The fire has been burning ever since, and it has caused the ground to collapse in some areas. The town is now a ghost town, and it is considered to be one of the most dangerous places in the United States. What caused the fire? The exact cause of the fire is still unknown. However, it is believed to have started when firefighters were trying to extinguish a fire at a landfill. The fire spread to an underground coal seam. The bell rang again, but it wasn't the fire alarm this time. It was the school bell, signaling the end of the day. The students and teachers filed out of the building, following the fire drills they had practiced many times. But once they were outside, no one noticed any signs of a fire. Was it just a false alarm? Was it a drill or something? The answer would come in the days that followed, as more and more people reported hearing fire alarms in their homes without any visible signs of a fire. Not all of these alarms were malfunctioning, they were being triggered by carbon monoxide. One resident of East Centralia, a man named Rick, was one of those who had been experiencing headaches, but he wasn't content to just take some pills and stay home. He decided to go for a walk, something he had been doing more and more often lately. He would walk out into the countryside, away from the buildings and neighborhoods, and try to get some fresh air. He was bothered by the fact that he couldn't seem to get a full breath of air anymore. It was as if he was only getting 30% or 20% of the oxygen he needed. He tried to ignore it and kept walking. He took a few steps, and then something strange happened. The ground beneath him felt soft. Before he could even comprehend what was happening, he began to fall. All of this was happening because of an incident that had taken place in 1962. As I mentioned in the introduction, firefighters were on their way to the town landfill to burn the trash. This was a decision that the town council had made in order to get rid of the town's garbage. I guess they thought it was a normal thing to do, but they did it illegally, or at least they didn't have any experts on hand other than the firefighters. Are firefighters considered experts? Are they the ones who usually burn garbage? Anyway, they went to the place where they had collected the trash, and then they lit it on fire. The pile of trash burned for a while, and then the firefighters started to try to put the fire out, but the fire wouldn't go out. This went on for weeks. They sent a large number of fire trucks, but it didn't help. Every time they tried to put it out, the fire would just keep burning. It wasn't like the fire was going out, but there was smoke coming out all the time. They were wondering why this was happening. What I thought was happening was not happening. Why was this fire refusing to go out? After digging around the area, they made a terrible discovery. You could say it was a disaster that you wouldn't want to be in, especially in this situation. The ground beneath them, where the trash had been, was cracked. There were cracks that extended to the coal mines beneath them. These mines had not been properly sealed, so the fire spread from the cracks on the surface of the mine to the mines below. It started to burn in the mine little by little. In other words, the ground beneath them was burning. But that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was that the town was built on a network of coal mines, not just one or two mines. A huge amount of coal was not going to stop burning for years if they couldn't control it. So what was the solution in this situation? One solution was to hire a company to dig up the mines and try to control the fire, but the company they hired couldn't dig fast enough to keep up with the fire. The other attempt was to pour water and extinguishing liquids into the fire through the cracks on the surface. This was an almost impossible task, and it was also very expensive. Not only that, but even if they did it right, they wouldn't know if they had done it right. They wouldn't know if they had actually put out the fire, so they were stuck. As for the townspeople, the fire that was burning beneath them without their knowledge was causing the symptoms I mentioned earlier, including headaches and breathing problems. And there were even more dangerous things, like the sinkholes that were forming. These were simply the result of the heat from the mines rising and carving its way to the surface. More than one person has fallen into these holes, and many of them have died. Also, the reason it was warm and the snow melted from the streets was the heat. Imagine the whole town was like an oven cooking it under the ground, and they were just starting to notice something very disturbing. At the time, around 1,500 residents of this town did not know about the most dangerous thing that had ever happened in their lives in this area, in the place they lived. The officials were not only the reason behind the ignition of the mines, but also deprived the residents of their right to know what they should do. In a situation like this, you would expect people to say, okay, the situation is bad and I am having bad symptoms that are happening to me, happening to my children, happening to my family, and we don't know the reason. If we knew that there was a fire under us, maybe we could take action. Maybe we could leave and go live somewhere a little far away or leave this town altogether. Of course, this is not a solution that the majority can do, so this was the reason behind a lawsuit filed by all the residents, in addition to the investors who were demanding compensation, because how can I sell my house, especially the people who own houses there, and how can I sell my house in a place that is burning to live in a new place? Fortunately, the ruling was in favor of the residents and they were compensated financially. Simply, the state of Pennsylvania, the state they are under, bought all the buildings and properties from farms and commercial stores and so on. Anyway, this was the cheapest solution than trying to extinguish the mines, especially since they were not sure how to do it. In the end, you don't hear much about a network of coal mines burning. Also, you don't hear much about these mines being under a town, so most of the residents of Centralia left. I don't think this was the solution they wanted, but it was what they had to do. Some of the buildings were demolished and nature has taken over the town. You will see many places like this, for example, and even though the town has been abandoned, there are still attempts to solve the problems, the environmental pollution problems in it. Because this fire not only polluted the air, but also the soil. Now, what do you think happened? Specifically, what happened after this news spread? Many people learned about Centralia, especially America. What was talked about quickly? Of course, it became a tourist attraction, not officially, but it became a tourist attraction for many people. Many adventurous people go to this polluted place. Here are some pictures of tourists visiting the town. Let's see them together. In the first picture, this is the steam that comes out of the cracks in the ground. The town is evaporating. They call it the steam that comes from the heat and that comes out of the cracks in the ground, which is honestly amazing and scary. Of course, if it happened around you, you would be scared, but from a distance it is somewhat amazing. And here is this picture of the street that is full of graffiti. This is not the only street that is full of graffiti. Also, it's not just us who do this. This picture scares me, the picture of the broken street, because the streets and the area are mostly like this. Also, something spread about this town, which is the Silent Hill game. Many people believe that the Silent Hill game, the town that Silent Hill is built on, is based on this event, that there is a similarity between them. It may be true that there is a similarity between them, but what I know is that it is not built on it. This rumor was spread by the people who made the game. So who wants to visit Centralia with me? Let's go together and visit this place, but just don't fall. Be careful not to fall into these holes. If you fall, it's not my problem. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive all new content. Thank you.